Well, I guess he really did rip her. Not funny. Didn't laugh. Oh, bloody hell. I have assembled a team of historical experts on this case, and together with your minuscule collective knowledge of the subject, we shall decide who is the real Ripper himself out of a list of history's most promising suspects.
Where are these
Okay.
experts?
I don't even know who this is.
Taylor.
I googled, I put Jack the Ripper in YouTube, and it just was a bunch of Buzzfeed videos that I just
Okay, the BuzzFeed
couldn't bring
Unsolved is
myself
kind
to-
of accurate.
I read a book on him when I was like 6. Does that count?
6? You read serial killer things when you were 6?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So
I read a book about a dog when I was 6.
I read a book.
I can't
I did
fucking
too.
read
He
in
was a really
English when I
big
was
red
6.
one.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, my father and mother used to get mad at my father because he would let me read stuff on like Hitler when I was 6 and watch like Holocaust documentaries and stuff like that.
She'd give you like for the big red dog, and he's like, no, man. Mein Kampf. Anyway.
Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf.
Oh my god.
Okay, anyway. So I got
Oh,
as
the
many
smoke was very
perspectives
detailed.
as I could. So we've got a banjo player, a Diet Canadian, and a guy with 2 numbers in his name today.
What?
I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hello, I have 2 numbers in my name. That makes me special.
Oh god, am I the Diet Canadian?
Hi, I am Attila. I am from Virginia.
Hi, Attila.
Hi.
Oh, is this not an
Attila.
AA maybe?
This is gonna be my new game show called People Do Muzzy's Job for Him. Because I've been wanting to do a video on Jack the Ripper for a long while, but I have no idea. There's a bunch of different suspects, and so I brought you guys here to make an opinion for me. At the end, you'll choose from a list of suspects that I give you who you think was the Ripper. The person with the most points will get their suspect named as our designated Ripper. You will be crowned Chief Ripperologist. You'll also get a hug.
We get a
Give you
hug?
an incentive to keep playing this game. I'll give you a Steam gift card. How about that?
Yes.
So yeah,
I don't even need it.
that's the only currency that I know exists.
Yes.
I
Good
just
money.
googled people in 1888.
Oh,
I'm
God.
gonna get like a yearbook from that year or something. and I'm gonna choose from
We
this.
should get like a
The London
from-
yearbook.
Yeah.
One of them just has just has like Martin McDonald or something, and it's like I am Jack
McDonald?
the Ripper. The scene: the dark, damp, dank, and dingy streets of Victorian London, the center of the expansive British Empire. London itself was the melting pot of the British world. However, on the darkest hours and in the darkest streets, the most sinister folk would lurk. In the summer and autumn of 1888, the attention of Londoners would be locked on a series of horrors credited to one psychotic criminal, the most infamous serial killer of all time, Jack the Ripper. So you're gonna have your first trivia question now. How many lives do Ripperologists believe that Jack the Ripper claimed? A, 5 to 11, B, 7 to 19, or C, 20 to 25? Alright, if you answered A, you are correct.
Bruh.
Jack the Ripper was believed to have killed 5 women, who are known as the Canonical 5, but Ripperologists, some of the crazy ones, think that he killed more than that, and it's up to 11, which is the highest number. Yeah, but the ones that we know, at least for sure, are 5 who are known as the Canonical 5, and I will go into all the different ones in the Canonical 5 for our timeline. We'll go into the first murder. August 31st, 1888. Marianne Nichols.
Nickelback.
Huh?
Nickelback.
No, not what? Marianne
Anyway.
Nichols' neck, not back, was slashed, and her internal organs had been ripped out from her corpse. Once police were called to look at the scene, they determined that Nichols was only dead for a half hour, and since many people at the time walked from place to place in the city, that eerily meant that Jack the Ripper must have been just down the road when the two witnesses originally found the body. Trivia 2! What was Jack the Ripper's day job or profession that Scotland Yard theorized after witnessing what happened to the body of the first murder? A. He was a butcher. B. He was a doctor. Or C. He was a military man. Alright, Bell gets another point.
God damn.
He was a doctor. I should probably write down the points.
Yeah, didn't they think he was a doctor because he had precision?
Due to nearly all of Jack the Ripper's victims' bodies being mutilated with precision, the head of the Criminal Investigation Department, I think his name was Sir Neville MacNaughton, which is the most British name I've ever heard. He knew that Jack the Ripper must have had a knowledge of anatomy due to the way that he was able to take out the organs of his victims. And so the theory went around that the Ripper was actually a doctor, probably in his day job, or a medical student studying. From eyewitnesses who told Scotland Yard that they saw him, the Ripper's alleged appearance was that he was 25 to 35 years old, around 5'5" to 5'7". He was white, and he had a mustache with a black overcoat and a black hat. So, you know, just like
Now-
every other man in London at the time.
Imagine just a medical student who's like, yeah, I'm gonna go teach myself.
Or maybe he got like dropped out of medical school and then he's like, ugh, I hate women and I dropped out of I got kicked out of medical
He's
school.
a gamer.
Stabby.
Next trivia. What is one fact about Scotland Yard, the London police force, during the Ripper case? A. The police commissioner resigned because of his frustration with the Ripper case. B. Scotland Yard in the 1880s originated the cliche of police eating donuts. Or C. The police uniforms at the time were actually yellow so they could be seen at night. Well, you guys all get a point, because it's the first one.
Huzzah.
Probably my worst question, because I couldn't really think about much about Scotland
I
Yard
like
at
the
the time.
donuts.
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 In America.
I would have loved
Made
it
me
if
hungry.
like they were just eating a donut, like, whoa, well.
They get a little donut crumble on the body. I'll just swipe that off.
September 8th, 1888. That's actually my birthday. Well, not on 1888, but
Wow.
Buzzy, is there something
You're
you
really
need?
old.
I am the Ripper. The body of Annie Chapman was found in the backyard of number 29 Hanbury Street at 6 a.m. Her body was horrifically mutilated, and notably the killer had taken her womb. Like Mary Ann Nichols and the rest of Jack the Ripper's victims, she was a sex worker trying to make ends meet, where prostitution was fairly common for women living in Jack the Ripper's neighborhood.
I told you he hated women. He took out her womb. He's like, I never wanted to be born. Pacha.
Nah, he was probably dating somebody and he knew the prostitute might have told his girlfriend, so he had to kill them.
I think that this man legit has women issues. Kills prostitutes, takes out their guts and their womb. That's like an act of hate. Usually it's like, I'm gonna shoot you, pew pew. Not, I'm gonna take out your womb.
It's called having fun and learning at the same time.
Jesus
Which is
Christ.
what
Educational.
Trivia 4. Who dubbed the serial killer being hunted the now famous moniker Jack the Ripper? A. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, as a joke to his friends. B. One of the key eyewitnesses in their statement to the police. Or C. The man himself in a letter that he planned to write in blood to a newspaper. You're correct. So,
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper actually
Too
gave
specific.
himself his own name. Signed off as Jack the Ripper. So, this is a guy who definitely knows how to make a brand. That is one of the craziest, best, like,
I want to study
serial
him
killer
in,
names.
in business and management.
The marketing
Jack the
manager. Social
Let's murder
media
some
manager.
people. We'll get attention.
Ah, Jack, you need to you need to do more killings. We're losing views. Need more hashtags in this one. Anyway, so this is the first letter. Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I'm down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write in, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink fits enough, I hope. Haha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for
Oh.
jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so sharp, and I want to get to work right away if I get the chance. Good luck. Yours truly. Jack the Ripper. Don't mind giving me the trade name. P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it, no luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Ha ha. So yeah, Jack the Ripper, that was him. His own branding.
But if they publicized that, somebody else could have been like, haha, ears.
Yeah, that's the thing. Some people think that this original letter is fake, that some journalist wrote it or someone sent it to the newspaper just as a haha, look at me, I'm Jack the Ripper. Okay, trivia 5. What was the London neighborhood where all of Jack the Ripper's victims were found? A. Hyde Park, B. London Bridge, or C. Whitechapel? You guys all got it right. Good work. It's Whitechapel. These weren't really known as the Jack the Ripper murders at the time. When Londoners were sort of keeping up the newspapers, it was referred to as the Whitechapel murders.
Keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, keeping up with the Rippers.
Exactly.
He was also dubbed Leather Apron, and so that was another name that they called him. That's what it sort of refers to in the letter. He was also called just the Whitechapel murderer. I think Jack the Ripper is better.
Yeah,
definitely.
Apron, that's a stupid name.
So, what do you guys think your serial killer moniker would be? I want to be Bloody Muzzy.
Bloody Muzzy.
I want to be something with gold because like I've said this before, like the best way to probably kill someone without it being on a talk screen is like by gold because it doesn't show up on a metal screen thing. So like killing them by gold is the probably
like heavy metal poisoning.
Yeah.
I was thinking
But
that killing them by gold you were talking about in Game of Thrones when that guy gets like, his head poured on him with molten gold. I was like, damn.
I wanna see gag somebody, then just club them to death with my banjo. That would be fun.
Oh.
Music Man.
Kill people with the banjo, that would be fun. Force the neck of it
Music
down
Man
to
of the
somebody's
South.
throat.
I don't know. I feel like
because
a good stabbing with scissors. You know.
Oh.
Classic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The cutter.
You know, don't run with them. Oops, I tripped.
Don't run with
The Scissor Runner.
Anyway,
Fun.
we should
September
probably keep going.
30th, 1888. This was the big night for Jackie. At 1 a.m., the body of Elizabeth Stride, the third victim, was found in Dutfield's yard. The creepy thing about her murder is that her throat had been cut, but the rest of Jack the Ripper's signature mutilation had not taken place. Due to the recent time of estimated death, police theorized that Jack had been interrupted by the witness who found her. So, I guess he just thought like, oh, well I already have her, so I might as well just kill her really quick and get out of here. It's pretty gruesome. September 30th was crazy because another murder happened in the same night. Catherine Eddowes' body was found 45 minutes later after Elizabeth Stride in the middle of a square. People theorized that during the night of the double murder, Jack the Ripper might have gone more insane, disregarding the more cold and calculative way he mutilated the body to savagely targeting Eddowes' face, making her almost unrecognizable. He also disemboweled her, taking her uterus and her left kidney. Yeah, so if there's pictures of all the different victims, and like there's just a noticeable difference for Catherine Eddowes. So either he was personally connected to her, maybe, or just he went crazy, just killing people and 2 people in one night.
These photos, Muzzy, can you show us for educational purposes?
No.
See the picture of Catherine Eddowes?
Or she.
I guess avert your eyes if you're easily like disturbed.
I'll post eye bleach.
Oh wow.
Oh, geez, Louise.
Yeah.
Her face. Maybe she kissed him by accident. He was like, no!
Yeah, that was a big, yeah, jeez, ouch.
Can you delete that now?
Yeah, I'm gonna delete that.
Thank you.
This is the most famous, like, I guess cartoon or sketch of the case, and it's of the police finding Catherine Eddowes' body.
Please tell me there's one man that just looks shooketh.
Oh, it's even better. There's 2 men who look shooketh.
Yes! 2 shooketh men.
They are very shooketh.
Why? What is up with his leg? Like, he's falling on her.
Yeah, he's like, whoa! I dropped my donut! Trivia 6. Where did the police find one of the only clues relating to the Jack the Ripper case? A. On a street under some anti-Semitic graffiti. B, in a trash can outside of a hospital, or C, in a small envelope with a heart drawn on it with blood? Belle gets this one.
She like moved up to
I did my research, bro. No, I did my research.
So on the night of the double murder, it revealed one of the only clues found for the case. A piece of Catherine Eddowes' apron was found on the street. What was crazy about this was the clue was found back in the direction towards Elizabeth Stride's murder when they knew that Catherine Eddowes had been killed after Elizabeth Stride. Many of the suspect theories relate this anecdote to trying to find out more about Jack the Ripper's personal life. People want to know how he would have been able to walk back into an area that was now flooding with patrols of policemen summoned to a crime scene and were trying to find him, as well as the motive for needing to go back to that area. People sort of think that he was probably a resident of Whitechapel, and that shows it because, like, you know, he went over to here to kill someone, and he's like, oh crap, I have to get back to my apartment, and had to sneak back. I guess that sort of shows us a general area where Jack might have lived, and that he was fairly knowledgeable of the streets, or he must have been able to sneak past the policemen, which I guess wouldn't be too hard if he looked like every other Londoner at the time, but then again, he would have been covered in blood, so it's hard to tell. Especially with what he did to Catherine Eddowes, he would be messed up. Trivia 7. This case was incredibly popular in London at the time. This was like their OJ. They were going crazy about this. This was all over the London media at the time, which was just like newspapers and pamphlets and stuff. And this was also a time when Londoners and many people in general were becoming more literate, and so they were constantly keeping up with the case. And so this sort of caused like a Ripper mania. So what was one of the crazy things that happened during this Ripper mania? A London playwright wrote a comedic play about Jack the Ripper and one of his victims titled Rip. B, an elite London committee received a human kidney in a package as a prank. Or C, the police had to crack down on teenage boys and girls running out into the street during rush hour reenacting the grisly murders.
I don't know, I kind of want it to be the third one, to be honest. Like, I'm gonna answer the third one because I want it.
Yeah, in here. Seems funny. Who won?
You should have watched your BuzzFeed video.
Oof.
With this, the newspaper started to receive tons of letters claiming to be Jack the Ripper, but the only one that really stood out to them was a postcard that they received right after the double murder. So this was received the morning after. This was when the information of the double murder wasn't released to the public, and the letter reads, "I was not codding dear old boss when I gave you the tip. You'll hear about Saucy Jackie's work tomorrow. Double event this time. Number 1 squealed a bit, couldn't finish straight off. Ha, not the time to get ears for police. Thanks for keeping last letter back till I got to work again. Jack the Ripper." Even though we can't really say for certain the first one is Jack the Ripper, this is the one that we can, not certainly because, you know, it's Jack the Ripper, so we don't know, but this is the one that we're pretty sure must have been Jack the Ripper because he wouldn't have known about the events of the last night to write about it and send it to the newspaper before even they knew what happened with the murders. Trivia 8. Why was the last of Jack the Ripper's victims so different from the others? A, their remains were found 8 years after the case closed. B, it was a 6-foot-tall muscular man. Or C, they were found in a bedroom. Well, you got it right. November 9th, 1888. Mary Kelly's murder is the most grisly. She was found in her own bedroom, 10:45 a.m. by her landlord, who was waiting for his rent payment. The landlord described the scene. "It looks more like the work of a devil than of a man." Kelly was nearly skinned to the bone, and her own blood covered the walls and objects of the room. She is the last murder of 1888, and therefore many believe that she was the final victim of Jack the Ripper, although other murders would be attributed to him in the next couple of years. So, that's the timeline. That's what happened. That's what we can sort of point to for this case. And now I can start going into the suspects, and you guys will hear all the suspects, and you'll pick the one that you think is the most right, and you'll try and argue for it. I'll say which one did the best argument for it, and then the person with the most points is going to be
The official suspect.
the official
That's
suspect.
definitely the person. We're gonna truly find him. And
Yes,
face him.
and we're gonna solve this case. And
Exactly.
the official solvers of the Jack the Ripper case. People have been working on this for 100 years, and we are going to work on it. I think we've been working on this for like 45
Almost an
minutes.
I know,
we're
right?
gonna do it. Alright, suspect number 1, the DNA Ripper, Aaron Kosminski. Kosminski was one of the 3 main suspects by Scotland Yard at the time. He was a resident of Whitechapel, and after the last murder, Mary Kelly, he was placed in an asylum for the rest of his life, explaining the sudden stop to all the murders. Kosminski's friends attested that he had a hatred towards women, notably prostitutes. Witnesses attested to have seen him in the area of the night of the double murder on September 30th. Kosminski was also subject to a recent DNA research project by ripperologist Russell Edwards, who spent 14 years of his life studying the Jack the Ripper case. In the book that he wrote about Kosminski, Edwards points to a shawl supposedly worn by Catherine Eddowes, which he bought as evidence of the Jack the Ripper case. And the shawl apparently had DNA evidence of Eddowes' blood and Kosminski's semen on it. During the DNA investigation, they used the descendants of both the 2 parties, Eddowes and Kosminski. It turned out that the blood and the semen were a match to the descendant. This made it highly likely that Kosminski was actually the killer. So Edwards got excited, and he wrote a book about this, and he became famous, and he gained a lot of press as the man who solved the Jack the Ripper case, until DNA experts have stated that the results of the study had not been subject to peer review. And it turned out that the genetic mutation connecting Eddowes' DNA to the shawl was actually not that rare, and was shared by nearly 99% of people of the European descent. So he done messed up. Yeah, and although Kosminski's personality and his circumstances relate to the case, the DNA itself did not work out. Suspect number 2, the cosplayer, Walter Sickert. Sickert was a painter who had an obsession with Jack the Ripper. He even created a painting titled Jack the Ripper's Bedroom, and another painting that he made reflected the exact body position of Mary Kelly on her deathbed. Another sketch found in his sketchbook was of a woman who looked incredibly similar to the mutilated face of Catherine Eddowes. So the sketch that he made of this woman looks like the scars that Eddowes had on her face. Sickert was also known to frequently cosplay as Jack the Ripper at parties and other events, when cosplaying was not a thing at the time. So he was just a weirdo. His alibi for being in France at the time is challenged by the fact that there are sketches of him in music halls in London during the time of the killing. And I know that there's the thing like, well, you can't really use art as evidence, and I think that's valid. However, I'm not too sure what the background of those sketches were. If it was just like a newspaper artist who came there to sort of sketch, oh, who are these people at the music hall? And so that could be it, or it could have just been some guy who came to the newspaper was like, I drew Sickert in London at the time of the murders. It's like, compelling thing about Sickert though is his paper itself. Due to paper being made at the time in batches, one can do a paper match to another piece of paper of the same batch. Letters that Sickert wrote at the time were direct matches with 2 of the Ripper's letters. The batch in question was handmade and only contained 24 sheets. Suspect 3, the Royal Ripper. The Prince Albert Victor Christian Edward was the grandson of Queen Victoria and the eldest son to his father, the heir to the throne. He would often go to the areas in Whitechapel where the canonical victims were found, as he secretly would visit prostitutes on the down low, where he also contracted syphilis, which deteriorated his mental state and drove him insane. 2 versions of this theory exist: that his syphilis madness drove him to murder these women and the royal family had to clean up the mess, or that Prince Albert secretly had a child with one of the women who he was seeing in Whitechapel, and all of those who were involved or knew of the child were taken care of. So although there isn't a lot of evidence for this one, this is a very popular theory because it explains the lack of evidence to the Jack the Ripper case, because the royal family would be desperately trying to cover it up at this time. Suspect number 4 is Jill the Ripper, Mary Piercy. So there's a popular theory proposed by even the chief inspector at the time, Detective Aberline, that Jack the Ripper was actually a woman, being able to slip away undetected from police who were looking for a man. Beyond that, if the female serial killer was a midwife, she would have been able to have the anatomical knowledge to match the description of the earlier murders, as well as being able to travel the streets covered in blood without raising any eyebrows. A few eyewitnesses mentioned that they saw Mary Kelly hours after she had been murdered. Perhaps the killer took Mary Kelly's clothing she was known to wear in order to escape and was mistaken for her. With this theory, there are few actual people to point to as suspects besides just the general idea that Jack the Ripper was a woman. But the most grisly and closest one we have is that of Mary Piercy, who was arrested and executed for her own horrifying murder. but perhaps her kill count could have been higher. On October 25th, the body of Phoebe Hogg was discovered in a pile of garbage with her head smashed and nearly cut off from her body. The body of her 18-month-old child was also discovered suffocated. Her explanation for the crime was as follows: "I was having a problem with mice and was trying to kill them." Mary was executed by hanging. The issue with this is the sheer time difference between Piercy's crime, which was famous but it occurred in 1890, and the Ripper's crimes, which occurred in 1888. Despite being able to be capable of doing the psychotic mutilations, there is no evidence that Piercy also was a midwife. Suspect 5, Joseph Barnett. The roommates. Oh my god, they were roommates. Barnett lived in different locations of Whitechapel, making him very knowledgeable of the streets and alleyways. His friends called him Jack, and he matched the physical characteristics given by witnesses to the police. Mary Kelly, the final victim, was his roommate. He was very protective of her, hated that she was a prostitute and an alcoholic. He referred to her as his wife despite them never being married. She, as the final victim, was also killed in her sleep, so the killer must have been able to sneak in and know she was a sex worker to sleep at that time of the day. He is also the only main suspect with a clear motive, as he wanted to kill prostitutes to scare Mary off the streets, and when that did not work out, he killed her and the killings seemingly stopped. The big thing is that he does not have any evidence of anatomical knowledge making him believed to be a doctor. He worked as a fish porter, so some ripperologists are convinced that he could have the necessary knowledge to be the Ripper because he gutted fish for a living, but like, I don't think fish anatomy correlates to human anatomy very well, but I could be wrong. The final suspect, the weekend killer, James Maybrick. So, James Maybrick's death coincided with the end of the Ripper killings, dying 1 year after the murders. He lived in Liverpool, a city 200 miles away. However, he was a wealthy merchant who was able to frequently make trips to London over the weekend, and all of the Ripper's killings happened on weekends, giving Maybrick enough time to, slice and go, come on in for the weekend, do some killing, and then be back home by Monday, So the two things that link him to the crimes are two pieces of physical evidence supposedly discovered on his property, but we don't know that. There was a diary that he had containing the signature, "I give my name that all know of me, so history do tell, what love can do to a gentleman born, yours truly, Jack the Ripper." The diary itself details each of the killings. He also had a pocket watch, supposedly, with scratches on the back of each of the canonical victims' initials. And then it also had the words, "I am Jack, J. Maybrick." People do question the authenticity of these pieces of evidence, though, mainly because they were not found directly on the property, but were brought forward by Mike Barrett, a scrap metal dealer who stated that he got the objects from Maybrick's descendants when he said he planned to write a book on the possibility that Maybrick was the Ripper. Barrett's honesty is questionable because he said that he fabricated the diary, only to say that he didn't later, so it's like, we don't know what he means. And that's it. Those are all the suspects today. There are so many more that people have for this, but those were the ones I had for this. Who do you think did it, Attila?
I think Albert, the prince, and I'll tell you why. One, the rural people can hide the evidence and cover stuff up and pay people. Two, he was reported as a child and all that, and even growing up to be a bit stupid, right? And have mental issues, so he could have done it. Three, so, if I'm not mistaken, the killing stopped in 1888, correct?
Yeah.
And he died, the prince, in like 1891, 1892. So easily his health going downhill stopped the killings, then he died.
Right.
Since no killings happened after his death. And if I was the king or whatever, it would not be that hard to really silence it. Just have the people killed, who could speak about stuff. Have them done away with, have them killed, have them go missing, cover up the sun stuff, have evidence accidentally destroyed or whatever, if anything came up. So yeah, that's why I think it's him.
Awesome. Alright, Belle, who is your suspect?
Okay. I'm torn between two. I'm torn between the blood guy, the first one, and then the girl. Because if they were looking for a male this whole time, it would be so much easier for her to kind of just escape, especially, in the police, getting around, because if they're looking for a male this whole time, they're not gonna look for a 5'5" girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
She's
just keep going, miss. Goodbye. You have a bunch of blood on you, but
But then also the first guy, there's just a lot of evidence against him.
You think
There's
so?
just a lot. Yeah, the first guy. There's just, like, ignore the, like, that they didn't, like, they tried the test on the two people and, like, that. Like, there's just a lot stacked up against the guy, I feel like. I think it's either first guy or it's the girl.
Cool. And JV.
Which one was the crazy dude that got locked up and then everything stopped?
The first guy.
I don't know. I feel like it's him. It's probably more crazy orientated than motive. I mean, sure, the one with the roommate as the prostitute, pretty good motive, but I feel like it's more crazy than like, oh, is doing something bad, so I'm gonna kill other people like her. It just seems sort of mystical that once he went to the insane asylum, it just sort of stopped, you know?
Yeah, I agree that the ones that you guys have already talked about are probably the strongest. I wouldn't dismiss Barnett because I think having a motive really makes sense and maybe just became more insane as he did it more and more. I don't like Maverick. Maverick is like one of the most popular, the weekend killer. But it's like, I don't see Jack the Ripper as this like posh gentleman, like, I guess I'll go to London and kill some people.
Yeah, the theory that it was him only came up after this one. Weirdly suspicious dude may or may not have fabricated evidence.
What could happen, right, is the medical examiners, and this goes back to my other theory, the royals could have paid the examiner not to do this and have somebody bribe the examiner, or they could have, again, hidden evidence, disposed of evidence, them being the king and the queen and all them people having connections to make stuff kind of go away.
Yeah, I think it's the first guy. I really love the idea that it's a girl, but I really think that it's just a crazy dude who has a vendetta for being born, and so he's cutting out people's wombs. There are quite a few, like, compelling arguments for all of them, but I think the one that has the best argument is either the one Attila's arguing for or the first guy.
I love the idea of Jill the Ripper, though. I think
I do too.
I'm not always like one of those people like, but what if they were a woman? Like, but I think it's really interesting. Yeah, the main detective working on the case was like, guys, I think it might be a woman, and probably all of them were like, ha ha ha, dumb.
I do want to point out for more evidence, Prince Albert was also white and had a mustache.
Yes, he
right?
did. I guess I'll award the 5 points to the person who I think argued their case the best, and I'll give it to Attila, because I think Attila really worked hard with that. So we now have a tie between Belle and Attila.
You can have the card, I just want the hug.
But who's gonna be our guy? Who's going to be our suspect that we name as the Ripper?
What about just transgender Prince Albert?
Transgender Prince Albert? So he would dress as the trap. I think that's great.
What a book that now.
Have fun time drawing that, Muzzy.
Come up with an entirely new suspect.
Just a guy in a mustache top hat, but he's wearing a princess dress. It's like all sparkly and pink in it.
Oh my gosh. Now that's something that they needed to cover up.